Hey guys, it's Maria Rothenberger, your host for the Miracles Happen Fertility Podcast. Welcome to episode 102. Now, I am personally celebrating my entry into the hundreds of episodes by taking a break. But that doesn't mean that you don't still get some great content. So I am offering this reprise today of one of my most popular episodes from almost, over 2.5 years ago, called No Mud, No Lotus. It's about transforming suffering, and it's still tried and true. I love it. I hope you love it too. It's good, useful information for your family building journey. And if you want to go even deeper into this work, you can go to a totally free series that I recorded all of 2020, and it's on YouTube. Just check out the Miracles Happen Fertility Center or click the link below, and you will find, or in the show notes, and you will find my channel where I did a year-long series on compassion. There's a huge component of transforming suffering through self-compassion and compassion of others. It's a weekly thing. It's not huge. Each part of the practice is a tiny exercise each week. You can so do this and transform your suffering. And it's free, right? What else is free in the fertility world? Okay, I should note ahead of time that some of the things that I mentioned, some of the giveaways and free things, not giveaways, but freebies that I mentioned in this podcast are no longer up on my website. However, if you feel like you are interested in that, you are welcome to send me a note. Just go to my website, drmariarothenberger.com, and contact me. Click on the contact page and send me a message there. I'm happy to send that to you. There are 3 free things, though, up on my website that you're welcome to download anytime. A couple of ebooks and a meditation. So you're welcome to grab those. Okay, now on to the episode.
Welcome to the Miracles Happen Fertility Podcast, where it's all about using the power of your mind to create hope, health, and miracles on your fertility journey. And now your host, a dash of science and a heap of spirit, Dr. Maria Rothenberger.
Hey there, welcome to the Miracles Happen Fertility Podcast. If you have not been here before, my name is Maria Rothenberger. I am a fertility therapist and coach specializing in all things having to do with infertility and family building. The counseling piece is about helping people heal from the damaging effects of infertility, and coaching is around growing from said pain, because dealing with struggles and building one's family is absolutely no joke. It is pretty painful. That said, all of my research and in working with many people shows that people can absolutely grow from and transform themselves and transcend infertility and fertility related struggles. And actually, that's what today's episode is about. If you were wondering, what the heck does no mud, no lotus mean? It's actually from a book by a Buddhist monk by the name of Thich Nhat Hanh. He wrote a book called No Mud, No Lotus. And it was about it's essentially using suffering or transforming suffering in the human condition. And I think it's such a powerful idea because it puts the control back in your hands, as opposed to feeling like the world is just conspiring against you. So we know how that can feel, right? But before we get into the topic of today, I just wanted to give you a heads up that there is a new freebie on my website. If you have not headed over to drmariarothenberger.com yet, that's burger like hamburger, BURGER. You will find a whole fertility meditation kit there for free on the website. You can either click the button at the top where it says free fertility meditation kit here, or you can scroll down to the bottom and see what's in that package. Lots of good stuff in there. Two free meditations there. If you've gotten the one, I Am a Mom, that's still there with a little bit different background music. And then there's a new one there too called loving kindness. And there's a whole e-booklet there on the top 5 reasons I've found why meditation is super friggin' important for your fertility. So check that out. It is absolutely free. It is a sign up for my newsletter, and I promise you I do not bombard with mailings. I send out, my goal is to send out once a month. It's been a little bit less than that, but that will be coming up here shortly as I revamp some things. And actually, all of this is coming into today's episode. I actually am inspired to do today's episode because I've been finding a little bit of struggle of late. I've been finding that I am crazy busy to the point that I don't want to be crazy busy. And so I've had a little bit of suffering around that, a little bit of like downtroddenness, a little bit of, certainly not depression or anxiety, but definitely some kind of poking in my direction from the universe, like, hey, Maria, you got to make some changes here. And so that's kind of where today's episode was inspired from. And it totally applies to the fertility world, but certainly just life at large. No mud, no lotus. All right. So a little bit of background on why I love this topic. When you head over to get your free fertility meditation kit, you'll see my logo on my website. I have never explained this before, and so I kind of want to explain where that logo came from. The logo came from a combo of 2 of my favorite quotes/ideas. And the first one is no mud, no lotus. And generally, I'm just going to hit that real quick. No mud, no lotus means that in order for the lotus flower to grow, literally in real life, the lotus needs mud to grow in. And so obviously, we're going to be talking about the analogy, why that's a great analogy for life in more detail. But that's one of the main reasons why I chose the lotus flower as part of my logo. The other reason, if you look at the logo, if you don't head over to the website, I'll just explain it. So the logo is a lotus flower, and it's sort of opening up and pointing toward a few stars. And the reason why I chose that is because a long time ago, many of you know, if you've listened to me before, that one of my favorite spiritual teachers is Wayne Dyer. And he said something in one of his talks, said something to the point of, or to the effect of, even when you're in the gutter, you have the option of looking up at the stars. And that's a play on one of Oscar Wilde's quotes that says, we are all in the gutter, but some of us are looking up at the stars. And what that means is suffering is human. We all hang out in the gutter, man. We're all suffering at some point. The difference is that some of us are able to look at the possibilities, essentially. We're able to dream and potentially move toward that dream. And they inherently mean, these 2 things inherently mean the same thing. No mud, no lotus, and looking up at the stars. And that's how my logo came to be. Long time ago, I had a professional blog called From Gutter to Stars with the same idea. So this is what no mud, no lotus means to me, and gutter to stars. So when we have really difficult, painful experiences, and obviously those of you who are listening know exactly what I'm talking about, you have ultimate control over your reaction to these painful things. And it took me a long time to learn this because I just sat in the pain. In the beginning, it was definitely a lot of loathing for outside or external things and internal things, and woe is me and self-pity. And I didn't really do anything with that pain. I didn't want to experience it. I was certainly attempting to run away from it at all costs. But there were a couple things in my life that I realized that were sort of inspiration to realizing that I had way more A, ownership over what was happening to me, and B, empowerment. I could choose a lot different than what I was choosing to do. And two of the things were the things that I just mentioned. One thing, the biggest thing probably was no mud, no lotus. I actually saw an infertility blog called No Mud, No Lotus. I don't know if it's still active or not, but that's the first time I actually contemplated that idea, no mud, no lotus. Now, I want to talk about a couple of different ways of seeing this idea, no mud, no lotus, because I was looking it up, doing some research for today's episode, and I saw a Huffington Post about it, and the author talks about the same idea, of course, no mud, no lotus, and they talk about the lotus pushing its way through the mud to the clearer surface, and it kind of like, forcing its growth, forcing its way out of the mud. Like, I'm gonna be better. I'm gonna be happy. And that's absolutely fine and well. For the purposes of fertility, though, I want to put a little bit of a different spin on this. If you've listened to this podcast before, you know that I'm a huge proponent of ease. I'm a huge proponent of engaging that parasympathetic nervous system, the nervous system, the part of you that says, chill the F out. Chill. And so when we talk about pushing through the mud, pushing through the pain, I'm going to force my way out of this and see light. That is not totally what we want to do when attempting to improve fertility. So, how I talk about no mud, no lotus is in two ways. One, in order to be in the light, one has to experience dark. In order to be in light, we have to experience dark. In order for the lotus to grow, it has to experience the mud, be in the mud. And by that, I mean really experience the darkness. So that means using the darkness for growth, almost like using your pain as nourishment for growth. So stay with me for a second. I actually came across this book a few months ago by a comedian, Kyle Cease. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's called I Hope I Screw This Up. And of course, the title caught my eye, and I flipped through it, and there's just a passage in here that I want to read really quick because it really expresses what I mean by using the mud as nourishment for your growth. So this is what he says, quote, "What experience taught me is that when we listen to accept and embrace our sadness or anger, frustration, boredom, etc., we learn more about who we truly are and the types of limiting beliefs we may be living under." That's a very important point, limiting beliefs. When I say accept and embrace, I don't mean just give up or sit in a bad mood, allowing your mind to convince you of how terrible the world is. I mean totally change your perspective on your emotions and begin to appreciate and honor them as a guidance system that is leading you to a new, freer version of yourself. I mean letting the shell of your mind fall apart as you just sit with every ounce of pain it throws at you, allowing yourself to fully experience every emotion that you feel is the gateway to actual transformation. There is no emotion, experience, or situation that is bigger than what you are. You are capable of growing beyond anything if you allow yourself to be with it. So I read this passage because it's true, A. And B, I don't feel like I could say this more eloquently than that. This is a comedian. The rest of the book is actually hysterical. That was a serious passage, but I really wanted to drive home this point that when you sit with the pain that you're experiencing, when you hang out in that mud, that is fuel for growth. So I'm encouraging you not to pull your way out of it. Pull, ignore, move it out of the way. I'm going to force my way to growth, into light, into being. I'm encouraging you to see it for what it is. I'm encouraging you to look at the mud as your guide. I'm going to give you an example here. According to Brene Brown, who is a leading researcher on vulnerability, one of the biggest measures of courage is the degree to which one is vulnerable. So here we go. I'm about to be vulnerable. A long time ago, before I started this podcast, I resisted. I didn't want to, and I wanted to. And I kept putting it off, and I kept saying, I don't know, it's too much work. I don't want to do it. I don't even know how to do it. But I knew that wasn't the case, because when I want to do something, it freaking gets done. I'm like, type A, make a list, get stuff done, man. That's my style. So I knew something was going on here. So this is what I did. And these are the steps that I'll be talking with you about, and how to use your pain and suffering for growth. What I did was I acknowledged what was happening, and I owned what was happening. No, Maria, there's something else going on here. You know that you need to do this podcast because, honestly, my ultimate goal in life is to help as many people as possible. That to me is enough. I just want to help a lot of people. And so I knew that to do a podcast and to do other things in terms of helping people is like my only motivation to do what I do. Helping people is my motivation. And so I knew that podcast could reach a lot of people, but I didn't want to do it. So I acknowledged that something was going on, and I sat with that for a little while, and I got quiet, and I really paid attention to what was going on. And then I did, as you know, I'm a giant proponent of meditation. I was doing meditation, and a memory came up of a time when I experienced really, really deep embarrassment and shame. And it's the reason why I was hemming and hawing with the podcast. And I knew that that was the reason. And I will tell you about it in a minute. I'm doing more hemming and hawing. But once I realized that this was the source of what was going on, I was able to honor that. I was able to have some self-compassion around it. And then I was able to experience that and in an emotional way and let it go, and then move on to start recording the damn podcast, which was so freeing. Here's what happened. Back in college, so I don't know if I've actually mentioned this. I probably have. Yes, I have mentioned this before, that I'm a singer. I actually sang a song for you guys on a few podcasts ago. And I was singing a song in college for my mom, and the place was friggin' packed, right? So I get up on stage, and my accompanist could not play the piano that night for whatever reason. So I had a new accompanist, and it was like, it threw me off. And I was already emotional because of this song. This is a very special song for my mom and I. And my mom's in the audience, and she's looking all proud. So I start like belting this tune, and it was horrendous. I mean, I'm not even being modest here. It truly was. My voice was cracking everywhere. I had just been like crying. I was very emotional because of this song, and it was really, really terrible. I'm like absolutely terrible. And the shame that I had from it, the embarrassment, and the people after the concert saying, "Oh, you did okay. You did good. You did the best you could. We know it's very emotional. It's good." Head tilted to the side. "Oh, it's okay." That sense of pity that you've had when people look at you. "Oh, you don't have any kids. Oh, you've been trying well. Oh, yeah, that's tough. Yeah. So moving on, it was that kind of sense of shame and embarrassment. And I knew it was because, and I knew the nerve was being touched when I was thinking about starting a podcast, because I was going to be, quote, seen again. That my style, that my artistic form, that my opinions, that my thoughts about how the world works and how to move through fertility with grace and ease, fertility struggles with grace and ease, I knew that those opinions were going to be out there, and that was going to be seen. And I knew that any negative judgment was going to be hard. I knew that people would judge no matter what, because the more that you're seen, the more people judge, for good or bad, right? And so that is the reason why I was triggered, because I knew that I was going to be out there and be seen. Just like when I was standing all alone on that stage, screwing up. And so I sat with that, and I practiced really, really great self-compassion. And then I honored those feelings and that fear. And clearly I did the podcast anyway. And so here I am, receiving lots of great, wonderful, positive feedback, knowing that the negative feedback is on its way. And maybe even neutral feedback, like, meh, whatever. A couple 1 stars or 2 stars, I don't know. I don't know what ratings are out there just yet. So I know that there are a few out there, but I know that the negative stuff is coming. I got some negative feedback on another, not on this podcast. I got a negative feedback somewhere else. And it's like, it sucks. It does. Nobody's impervious to negative feedback. It's just different now, because I'm able to use that as fuel for growth. Okay. So this is what I'm suggesting for you. When you are sitting with really immeasurable pain, really, really immeasurable suffering, I'm encouraging you to resist the urge to run away from it, which is what we tend to do. And we tend to run away from it literally by running or doing things that are not healthy, like eating too much, drinking too much, whatever, ignoring it in some way. And oftentimes when people tell me that they can't handle meditation, it's usually because they are so damn anxious. Anxiety pops up like crazy. Thoughts go insane because they are so used to being busy that they don't have time to honor the anxiety, to honor the fear, to honor the pain. And so it sits dormant until you do something like meditation, where it's like, finally, hi, I'm here, deal with me. So what I'm encouraging you to do is just that. What I'm encouraging you to do is notice the mud. And you're going to acknowledge that mud, and you're going to say, I see you. I see you. And just like in the book, I Hope I Screw This Up by Kyle Cease, he talks about honoring it. And I've talked about this a lot before, that we're not talking about initially entirely transforming that emotion. You must first honor it. You must first honor that it feels painful to see that pregnant woman walk by. You must first honor that you got that baby invite. I actually just read a post on an adoption Facebook group where someone's father-in-law passed away and left inheritance to all of the other biological grandchildren and left nothing to the adopted grandchild, which is incredibly painful. And so I'm encouraging you, I'm sitting with that pain right now. That was another sigh. Let me just sigh again. That was an example of feeling that pain and attempting to run away from it. But I came back. You could see I took another deep breath. And that's what I mean by this. That you acknowledge that this pain is happening and you sit with it and you honor it that way. So that's the first thing. Notice the mud. The second thing I want you to do is to get curious about it, just like I did with the resistance to doing this podcast. Where is that coming from? I wonder where that's coming from. Let me sit with this in this calm space and see what comes up. Get curious. What comes up? And for me, immediately, it was standing on stage singing this song to my mom. And that's when I knew, oh shit, that's where this is coming from. Old wounds die hard, right? So you're going to get really curious about where that pain is coming from. This might be really, really obvious. It may not be a past memory, or it might. I'm going to suggest that a lot of our fertility pain does come from past experience, but that's a whole other episode. Okay, the next thing that you're going to do after acknowledging the pain and getting curious about it is to practice ultimate self-compassion. And if you want, if you need some help around that, there is a meditation in the fertility shop on self-compassion, drmariarothenberger.com. So when you practice self-compassion, it's a little bit more than being just nice to yourself. It's a little bit more than getting a mani-pedi. It's a little bit more than that. Those things are fantastic, by the way. But it's more than that. You'll see an example of it actually. If you follow me on Instagram, recently I was sitting with a client and we were putting self-compassion into practice, and spontaneously we wrote on ourselves really intentional, compassionate phrases. And the reason why we did this is because there's a whole bunch of science around this too. And it's beyond the scope of today's podcast, but the power of words is really palpable. So we were putting words on ourselves, and actually I'm going to pull up my Instagram account here. Let me see what I wrote. What I wrote on my arm was, I love you. You are enough. You can do hard things. And all is well. And that is a very compassionate practice. And I'm not saying you have to write on yourself. It's a very compassionate thing, but you don't have to do that. You can just say the words to yourself in your mind. You can write them on paper. You can put them on Post-it notes and stick them up on your mirror where you see it every day. There are a bunch of practical things that you can do for self-compassion, but I encourage you to do that. That's the very, very next thing to do. The next thing would be to cry your friggin' eyes out. Feel that pain. Feel it. Feel the feels. Cry your eyes out, scream, rage, throw shit, write, run. It doesn't matter what you do. Get it out in some practical way. And you'll feel it's surprisingly, it's just interesting how much of a release you feel when you do this. And you might feel quite tired or energized. Kind of depends on the person. Personally, I feel really tired after experiencing all that. And it may have something to do with like being an introvert or something. I don't know. But emoting a lot feels exhaustive to me. So be prepared for something like that. After that, after you emote, you want to check in again. Okay, where am I with this pain? Where am I with this suffering? And if it's still really potent, you want to repeat. Get curious about the pain, practice that self-compassion, emote out, and check in again. After you have released as much of that suffering as you can, that is when you move on. And when I released that suffering of that past experience of being seen, I was able to finally record my first podcast. And it doesn't mean that the pain isn't still there. It doesn't mean that the fear isn't still there. It just means I'm able to do it anyway. It just means that I choose to do it anyway. And that's the way to put it. This is choice. This is choice here. So you feel the fear and do the shit anyway. That is no mud, no lotus. All of that fear, all of that past experience, I used to fuel my growth. I didn't sit in that mud and go, oh my God, no, I can't be seen. No. Instead, I bloomed and I said, I'm going to be seen because I've experienced that mud, and here I am, still alive, still being human, still wanting to help people. And so, record. Out comes the first podcast episode. I'm really curious about where your pain is. I'm really curious about where your suffering is. And I'm curious about how you might handle that mud, how you might be self-compassionate and curious about that pain, and how might you bloom. Please send me a message and let me know how you might handle this. Again, you can reach me on my website or message me on Instagram, drmariarothenberger.com, or Instagram, I believe, actually, let me see my handle on Instagram. That is Dr. Maria LPC, which means Licensed Professional Counselor. All right. And so we come to the end of today's episode. Again, if you haven't picked up your free fertility meditation kit, I encourage you to do so. That's over on drmariarothenberger.com. Please feel free to send me any feedback, positive or negative, because I feel the fear and do it anyway. And it helps me fine tune, because that's what mud does. It helps you fine tune. It's a guide. That's what all suffering is about. It's a guide for you. And if you would be so kind to head on over to whatever platform you're listening to this podcast on and rate the podcast. It really helps improve the ability for others to listen to it and get the great content and the usefulness that you get from this, hopefully. All right. I wish you so much wellness. I wish you so much growth. I do not wish you a whole host of suffering. However, I do wish you growth from that suffering. I do wish you the ability to feel the pain and notice how it is guiding you to your growth as a beautiful lotus flower or a fluffy unicorn or something. I don't know. Whatever it is you want to be. May you be well. May you be happy. And may you know that your miracle is on its way to you. Until next time, be well.